Okay, now we have the head of the subject properly adjusted in terms of light, the color, and the saturation. So everything that we have worked on the detailed video on how to make this adjustment is saved here. Now I'm just going to work with the template and with a layer that contains everything adjusted to make it easier. Always you can save a backup, but pretty much if you have done things step by step, you now should be good to go with the next and final adjustment. First, we duplicate this layer and make a clipping mask for this. Why? Because we are going to add some effect of oil paint, especially here because this animal has long hair. Then we will be adding some noise and then just making sure it blends properly with the background. So with this one, we go to filter, stylize, and oil paint. The adjustment will depend if there is long hair, short hair. So you can play around with this. This is a good example, making sure that the first and last option are at the highest. Always trying to keep the cleanless and scale on a lower setting. Why? Because if you do this cleanless, it will make it too artificial. So it's just a little bit. And the lighting can be like that. Especially from the direction that the light should be coming from. Okay, and then you go, okay. And now you create a mask for this, paint it black. And we will, with the white brush on a lower opacity, start kind of revealing those areas where we want that effect. The eyes shouldn't be having that painted effect because there is no hair, but in the areas that there is lots of fine hair, you can actually do that. Make sure here, try to go especially in the direction of the hair, something like this. The ears too, because there is lots of fur over there. Okay, something like this. This part doesn't require that much because there is not that much hair. Some here and some here. Okay, so you can see it's a little bit more selective. So you can see the difference. Much better like that. Then the second thing is we will be doing some sharpening in it's only the eyes. So, and this has to be slightly, don't exceed more than 5% strength. Let me show you what happens if you start doing something like that. It will just mess the results. So it's just a pinch. And finally, some of these portraits will require adding some noise depending on the background. This one does a little bit. We add noise here. You go to filter, noise, add noise. Noise is just a tiny detail. Don't take it too much. So don't do this because it doesn't make sense. So I don't recommend more than 2 or 3% probably. I think 2 it's more than enough. And that's it. And finally, on this layer we create one clipping mask. We will just check if there are some spots to blend properly. Lower opacity, making sure some of this so it blends more better with the background. Any details. one final check on work, and it's good to go save and export according to the size and guidelines that you have been provided for the specific order. Once you have everything exported, I am just going to share some guidelines on placing the image before sending to production. Okay, so let's talk about cropping first. So the idea is to show as much as possible of the costume, so we don't need to actually do a really close cropping. Here we lose some of the costume and the head is too big, and we miss out on the details of the actual background. But we don't have to have this white space, so please always make sure you have checked what's the size of the canvas you have to deliver and adjust accordingly. So here it's good to go. We are not losing any details from the actual painting. The head of the subject is positioned in the center. We don't want to do something like this or this and that. We have too much space here or too much space here, so just make sure it's as centered as possible, that you're not missing anything from the costume. And then remember, it has to be on this direction to be printed, and when you are exporting it into the folder. Some more additional guidelines to be considering and final recommendations. Some templates require a bigger effect of oil painting, some just require more noise, so it will be subject to your criteria to see if it needs more noise or less noise. The major recommendation is that if the animal has long hair, then it does require some brushing and sharpening